Today I'm going to give you a little bit of further insight on the pile driver move, and the pile driver technique is what I used to call Zhang Zhuang, which is where you gradually fill yourself after having slumped. You restore yourself to the upright position. And this is a major breakthrough innovation in internal energy training. And I hope you guys are already doing it. If you've seen my 2-hour Vimeo movie, it is given in great detail. It is taught in every nuance is on that film. And there's really no reason not to do that. The energy will blow you away. And you have to just get over any scruples you may have, because the first part of the pile driver involves upper body slump or some inclination of the upper body. And you may think, oh, that's not Tai Chi, that violates this or that. But you can forget about all those kinds of complaints, because there's already a move in the form low punch that involves exactly this kind of alternation. So don't worry about that kind of nonsense and just get into it, because it is the most powerful internal technique. Now, there are several variations of it, all of which are covered in the 2-hour Vimeo film. However, one of those innovations I didn't put on that film, and I just wrote about it in the blog. So I'm going to go over that in a little more detail now, just to give it to you. And if you don't have the base training that's on the long film, you won't be able to do this extension. In fact, the first thing you need to know from the long film or from any of my other films is you're going to have to be able to do the Benlo Zhengmanqing mechanics, just have a basically correct stance. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, like mimicking the professor exactly, but you have to have the basics. And that shouldn't be so difficult. I don't really understand why people seem to have a lot of trouble getting into just the most basic, just the physics of the stance, the mechanics. Why is that so difficult? It's basically just, we're going to be using 70-30 stance for these, what I now call pile driver exercises, which is just a front-weighted stance where you've got most of your weight on your front foot and about 30 or even 20% on the back, so you've got a strong differential between a strong leg and a weaker rear leg. You need to feel that difference. Your waist is facing directly forward, your front knee is over your toe, hip joint is bent, rear foot is flat and straight, legs are approximately shoulder width wide and maybe a hair more than shoulder width front to back, but not much more. Now, why is this so difficult? I don't understand. I teach people over and over and I say, front foot straight, and your foot is like that. I say, wait, front foot straight, and they go like that. Why? I mean, Ben used to always ask us, why is this so hard? And I say, waist facing forward along the front vector of the pose. And then everyone's waist is like this. So, why? Why is that so hard to do? I don't understand. Why can't that be done? Then I say, a body upright, and people are like this, or their hip is all over the place. Why is that so hard? And rear foot flat, and everyone's foot is up like this, or out like that. Anyway, that's just a rant, but it shouldn't be that hard. All the details are on the long film. Now, mostly the pile driver work is in the 70-30 stance. It can be done using the rear-weighted stances that are covered in my book, Pump. But for now, the major benefit you'll get from it is from the front-weighted stance. So we're going to always be in this stance for our lower body. The upper body, you could use any of the arm configurations that are given in the book, Pump. That could be single web, that could be left ward-off, that could even be the weaving lady, or it could be other such poses taken from the Zhengmanqing form. So it could be brush knee. Many variations are possible. But the principle is the same for all of them. You simply are going to let your upper body come somewhat forward, keep your arms in place. So in other words, it's only the upper body that is moving. The arms do not have to go down with it. That's one of the variations, but for now we'll work on what I call pinned version, which is keep your arms in place. You see how my arms don't move? Only this part is moving, the upper torso. It's as though someone were holding your arms, as I show in the Pung book, as though the arms are pinned or held in place. Those are the basic mechanics you're going to have to not only know, but practice and master and feel in yourself properly before what I'm going to show in the rest of this movie will make any sense. Now, the principle of Tai Chi, where does the power, this amazing power surge that you'll feel through your body? It's an incredible feeling that even people who practice for 20 years often don't know what I'm talking about. But if you do this, you will start to feel that. And where does that come from? It comes from walking a line between heavy and light, or solid and empty. This is shot through the entire Tai Chi classics, but most people don't take it seriously enough. And that's why in the long film, I show that the principle of using your legs is based on alternation, of maintaining simultaneously in your mind the feeling of strength, like the handle of this is a rigid, heavy handle of a whip, and lightness, something very soft and light that appears to have no power at all. And yet somehow they're connected. So I'm sorry, it sounds very philosophical, but it becomes a reality in your body that the power here and the power here, if you can simultaneously hold them in your mind, bam, you'd be blown away by this explosion of internal power. And it's mainly a mental thing. Once you get the mechanics right, that I tried to quickly run through at 100 miles an hour a minute ago, then you can start the mental work, which is really the point of it. And the mental work is to understand this contrast, this constant alternation between insubstantial and substantial. That's the two powers. And when they come together, boom, it's like a nuclear explosion, like when neutrons hit in massive enriched uranium. It's when those two things come together. Now, assuming you've understood all the mechanics and principles and details of the basic pile driver and the idea of pinning or holding your arms in a fixed position, and the alternation between the strong leg and the lighter leg, all that lower body stuff, one final extension you can do to really turbocharge it is that you don't let your arms slump. That would be the most elementary variation, and we've gone beyond that by holding our arms in place. So you're not going to let your arms slump. But what you're going to do is, keeping your nice, beautiful lady's hand, I've talked about all this in the long movie, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. At the very end, as you rise and fill yourself, simply, mainly mentally, just extend your fingers from the last joint of the finger, the very last joint of that finger. It's 99% mental. Have the feeling of extending from that last joint, not the rest of your body, not like going crazy. Mentally only, extend the very last joint. Just the pads of your fingertips is all we're talking about here. Don't go nuts and make it into a physical exercise, or you will never feel anything. But this is such a subtle, light, insubstantial piece of your body to play with that it creates the chain reaction, that fissile moment that you need. Because your main focus is going to be on your lower body. With the pile driver exercise, the main focus is always working the legs. Your attention starts from the soles of your feet and you rise up and everything's happening in the lower body. At the very end of that process though, when you've restored yourself pretty much as far as you're going to go, if you mentally, just for an instant, gently, softly, feel that extension of your last joint, then the power will be dragged up. It'll be surging up from your feet because you've called it. This was your mental call to it, saying, this is where I want you to end up. And that, man, it will respond to that so strongly. Now, how can we simulate that? How can we give you a clearer mental idea of the feeling of that? Especially given that some poses do not involve this shape, right? Now, that what I just said, extending your fingertips, is predicated on the idea of the beautiful lady's hand where your fingers are already extended. But what if your fingers are in a fist or in some other shape? Then how do you do it? In that case, or as part of the general mental imagery of this process, you can imagine that a feather is touching the end or any place on your fist. This will call your mind there just for a moment, and in a very soft way, without going crazy and reaching and grabbing and all the stuff that kills the power. That will call your mind to the spot very quickly and lightly, and that will create the contrast we need. So, if I have someone come here, and at first, let's just do it from single whip. And if I slump down as I come up, if you touch just anywhere on my hands with those feathers, lightly, just anywhere. Yeah, see, now he's touching there, just the end of the feather, yeah. Now, very light, even lighter. Just keep that touch. Now, as I come up, having that feather there makes the power ripple out. It's unbelievable. Just because this very light touch is calling the energy there, you're just gaming yourself. It's not like some deep, dark, killer kung fu thing. You're going to kill someone with a feather quill or some nonsense. It is a mental game you're playing with yourself. So get a partner, get some feathers or any other very light thing, but preferably a real feather. That's the image you want. And let them touch you somewhere very gently, and that will be enough, no matter where they touch you, to keep your mind where it needs to be at the end. All right? So, later, thank you, when you don't have a partner to do that a few times with a partner, get that feeling, and then when you do it yourself, as you come up, remember what that felt like. Just the memory of that very light touch of the feather will be enough to ripple the energy from your feet right up to where it needs to get.